you that I have four different parts in this presentation, and then I wanted you to just listen to this and tell me uh, how many of these words you can remember. 1 second.
Lamp, shoe, dog, flower, camera, sun, ship, book, fish, bus, phone, balloon, bed, car, apple, tree, house, bear.
Okay,
Lamp.
just tell me the number. Just tell me the number. How many of the words that you saw you can remember? Just the number.
Around 10.
About 10, roughly about 10. Okay. Anyone else?
15 words probably.
15. Wow, that's really wonderful. Okay, instead of going to tell me how many words do you remember, may I ask a question slightly differently? What did you do to remember those words?
Picture and sound
The
connection.
pictures.
You saw the pictures?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah,
Sound.
and,
You heard the
observe.
words. You heard the words. Okay, somebody heard the words. And anyone else?
So the graphic image, it helps to
Yeah.
The graphic image helped you. The image helped you to remember them.
Yes.
Okay. Anyone else?
Pronunciation.
Reading and reading this
You
thing.
read the words. Did you also write them?
No, sir, we didn't really get the
No,
time.
sir.
to do that.
Did
was
anyone
very
did anyone try to write down the words at least?
I tried, sir.
You tried.
No.
Okay.
Yes.
So from what you told me, I understand that there are different ways in which you try to remember these words. Some of you wrote them down, some of you just saw the pictures, some of you read the words, and some of you did whatever was possible, a combination of them. So this is how our students in our classes also try to, follow what we teach them. Some of them are seeing what we are showing them. Some students are reading what we are writing on the board, and some students are writing down in their notebooks and are trying to follow the lesson. And some of the students are doing a combination of these things. So, like we try to remember these words, our students also are struggling to follow what we are doing in the class, and maybe they are using different techniques, different styles. That's exactly what we are going to see in the presentation today. I'm going to begin with a little long video. This is about 5 minutes long. But when you see this video, you have to keep these questions at the back of your mind and try to answer them after the video is seen. So there are 4 questions on the screen. The first one is, what makes students believe they are stupid, they are useless, they are worthless? So students think for some reason that they are useless. So the video answers the question. So if you watch the video carefully, you'll be able to find the answer to that question. And similarly, there is a second question. What student differences are ignored by the system? Students come with some kinds of differences, but the system, the modern education system, ignores them. So what are those differences? And the third question is, what do these differences depend on? Where do they arise from? How do they arise, and then what do they depend on? And the last one is, how does knowing these differences impact teachers? So there are 4 questions, and you're going to watch a video now. And after the video is shown, I'm going to ask you these 4 questions again, and you must be ready to answer them. Are you all ready to see the video? Let somebody confirm.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
That's good. That's good. Wonderful. So here comes the video. I'm sure you enjoyed watching that video.
Yes.
Because this is, of course, a very bitter, biting criticism of the modern education system, which has not undergone the same kind of transformation as many other technological fields have done. So let's come back to the questions which we began with. My question number 1 was, what makes students believe they are stupid and useless? Would anybody like to answer that question?
Same kind of
Yeah.
same kind of teaching method is used to differently able students.
Okay.
So this may believe them.
Mhm. He began by quoting Einstein and said, Einstein thought, and Einstein said that every student is a genius, but the education system makes them believe that they are incapable, stupid, ignorant, useless, worthless, etc. I think there were lots of other factors that he recounted right at the beginning to tell. Gave the example of the fish. If the fish is taught to climb up a tree, the fish believes that it's not capable and then it's useless. So the same way we are teaching something that perhaps not relevant to students, so that they find themselves, they think themselves to be stupid. Maybe we'll find answer to this question a little more in detail as we go forward. My question two is, what student differences are ignored by the system? Are there any different? What does this modern system do to ignore the systems, ignore the differences? Sorry. Anyone?
So it's a very rigid system.
Correct.
Yes, and also it's a one size fits all kind of system, which
Correct.
is not diversified and which is not fitted to suit the needs and the potential of different students.
Right. Okay. That question, your answer actually is an answer to question one. But my second question is, there are some student differences that are ignored by the system. What are they?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Cultural differences.
Yeah. Okay. Does
Culture differences and caste also, sir. Caste also one factor.
okay.
Yes, background.
Uh-huh.
Background, yes, exactly.
Cultural difference and all these are of course differences, but does he talk about them? He talks about something else. He lists a few differences among students that are completely ignored by the system.
Yes, sir. It always class between upper class and lower class students.
No, I agree with you, but I think the video does not talk about that. But what you said is
Yes,
right.
yes, yes.
What you
Yes.
said is right. Okay, he makes a
So
mention.
one student,
Yeah, yes, please.
a student may be good in playing games,
Right.
may not be good in readings.
Uh-huh.
So we take all these students in a one that
Yeah,
stereotyped classroom.
correct. One
Students,
uniform,
students'
one uniform.
capabilities,
Ah,
students' capabilities.
right. Correct. Student capabilities are not taken into account, and despite that wide variety among the capabilities of the students, we just, like it has already been said, one size fits all is the modern education system's approach. So there are a few things that are completely ignored by the system. What each student is strong in, so we don't try to do any pre-entry level evaluation of what the students' strengths are, and everybody who comes is taught the same subject. And similarly, what are the needs of the student? So, why exactly is he here? So, does he have any objectives? Has he come here for any purpose? So that also is often ignored. Their gifts are talents. Gifts means their dreams, their gifts, their talents, their skills. They are often ignored by the system. So he showed his cap and said one size fits all, which is not true. The same medicine does not work the same way with all patients. These are the examples that he gave. So these are the four things that he lists, and perhaps they include everything that we can talk about, and these are ignored by the system. The third question that I asked you was, what do these differences depend on? Where do they arise from? Anyone would like to answer that question? Their strengths, their needs, and their dreams, all these are different. But where do these differences arise?
So aptitude,
Very good. Thank you.
interests.
Yeah, their interests, their aptitudes.
Yes, sir. The talents.
Okay, talents are the differences, yes. But how do they arise is the question. Why are there differences in their talents?
Their intelligence level.
Yeah, their intelligence is one. Okay.
It
The
is
question
maybe
is,
the
why are
need
their
property.
strengths different? Why are their gifts different? Why are their dreams different? What is it?
Cultural difference.
Cultural.
It
Okay.
is,
Okay. Right.
it is based on the environment, sir.
Mm-hmm.
The environment they grow.
Okay, the environment, yes. So these are the differences that you talked about directly and indirectly. It does not directly list them this way, but I've just put them in an easier way for you to remember them. So there are biological differences, there are cognitive, psychology differences, and there are social differences, emotional differences, environmental differences, and social includes cultural and environmental differences, lots of different factors. And biological perhaps refers to the genetic structure of the person, what are you born with, the talents that you are born with, etc., etc. So these are the kinds of differences that we find among students, and then these are the reasons why these differences arise. But what happens in the system? So whatever be your biological structure, whatever be your social aspirations, whatever be your emotional attitude, whatever be your gifts and dreams, so we give one single common core to you. The problem with the common core is the same syllabus, the same length, the same duration, the same structure, the same examination pattern, the same teaching methodology, right? The same classroom, and naturally, so that creativity, that individuality here, their creativity and individuality are killed, right? So this is how the gifts are treated, when students are treated like a robot in a class, and that's where the problem arises. So we'll answer the last question later as we go through, and how do these differences impact our classroom performance, and also how the teaching learning process is affected by what we are going to see next. To put very briefly, so everybody teaches in the class just to achieve maybe three things. What are they? KSA stands for? K stands for knowledge, S stands for skills, and A for attitude. There may be some other minor things, but these are the basic objectives of teaching any student anywhere at any level. So we want to improve their knowledge, we want to build their skills, and we want to condition their attitude. We want to change their attitude, we want to mellow their attitude, whatever. So these are the three basic. I mean, you can have sub objectives later, but KSA, easy to remember, ASK, easy to remember. Just keep these three things in mind. So if somebody asks you why you teach or why are you teaching, of course, some of us are teaching for a salary, some of us teaching are for livelihood. That's our purpose. But why are we teaching the students? The students are taught to help them build these three things. Then if you look at the factors that are affecting this learning, so in case I want to teach my students that KSA, what are the factors that are affecting it? What is coming in the way? What's promoting it? What's benefiting it? What's hampering it? What's stopping it? The factors that affect it. So there are some factors relating to their prior knowledge, motivation, purpose. The student comes with a certain level of motivation, right? The student is already here. He went to some other school, some other college, somewhere else, and he has come to me now, and he has come with a certain motivation level. So this is, if he is highly motivated, it's a positive factor. If he's not at all motivated, it's a negative factor. But this is affecting his learning. He is in the class and he is not able to learn, or he is able to learn because of his motivation, because of his prior knowledge. What school he has come from, what college he studied at, and then what kind of potential that he has, what kind of intellectual skills he has, how much he already learned earlier. So and also the purpose, how focused they are, whether they have come here really to learn something or are they just half-baked. These are factors that, one set of factors that affect the learning that happens in the classroom. Then the second set of factors are the learning preferences. What does the student want to learn and how that student wants to learn? What kind of environment he prefers, what kind of learning process he prefers, what kind of learning methodology he prefers, etc. The third are the institutional environment. How is the classroom, whether it's comfortable or not? How is the chair? Where is the blackboard? Where is the light? How much light is there? And what kind of classroom infrastructure is available to you in the classroom? This is yet another factor. And the materials refer to the textbooks. The textbooks and other materials that you use. Maybe if you are using a PowerPoint slideshow in your class, that is your material. If you are taking a map to a class, it's your material. The textbook, of course, the student has, and then the textbook his student can lay his hands on, so that is your material. So these are some 4 important areas and factors that can impact the outcomes from the class depending on how positive and how negative these are. Suppose the institutional environment is excellent, the student has greater chances of learning. Suppose the institutional environment is not good, suppose there isn't enough furniture, suppose there is no proper lighting, suppose it's very, very distracting, and there is a lot of disturbance outside, and such kind of things. So they can affect learning. Now, I have a question. Which of these four do you have control over? Which of these four factors can you control?
Institutional environment.
Are you the principal of a college?
No, sir.
No, you are a
Assistant
lecturer.
professor.
Maybe you are a teacher. Perhaps you have very limited control. I think very, very.
Teaching learning materials.
Prior knowledge and motivation.
Teaching learning materials.
No, learning materials. Are you a textbook producer? Are you a textbook writer?
Motivation and purpose.
Motivation. I'm talking about the students' motivation. You can work on that, but you cannot change that in the beginning. The student has come with some motivation levels. I'm talking about when the student comes to your class, he has come with these things. So maybe future, perhaps you can condition it a little, you can affect it a little, but the student already has come with, for instance, his prior knowledge. It cannot be changed. He has already come with the knowledge. Future, of course, is going to be different. Depends on how you're going to handle it. So what I wanted to tell you is, without troubling you, so these four factors, the teacher has very, 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 very limited control over, or sometimes zero control. It is not in teacher's hands. I cannot change the course materials. I cannot change the college environment, the classroom furniture, or whatever. I cannot change the size of the class. I cannot change the shape of the class. I cannot change the physical environment within the class. You can change that to some very small extent. If you are a very creative kind of a teacher, we'll also see that if possible. And similarly, the students' learning preferences, I cannot change them. Prior knowledge, I can. The purpose for which they came, they have a purpose. They came with a purpose. Why they have joined a course? Maybe they have an objective. Maybe they have a dream. Maybe they have a goal to achieve. That I cannot change. So, I mean, what I want to tell you is that the teacher has limited or no control over these four factors, four sets of factors. There is a fifth one, teaching style and teaching methodology, over which do you think you have control over this? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. For all of you said yes. It's great because this is one area where the teacher has absolute control over. It is teacher's freedom, teacher's autonomy. No college stops you from using a good style, a good classroom methodology that helps your students and that affects the learning process, that makes your students learn easier and better. So if you can use a methodology, of course, there may be some schools and colleges where even the methodology is decided by the management, the lesson plan is decided by the management, and then you are strictly forced to do something exactly the same way that the management expects you to. But generally, it's the teacher's prerogative. So how I approach the classroom, what kind of changes I can quickly make to make my methodology slightly altered so that my learning objectives, my teaching objectives are achieved. So this is one area where a little freedom, or in some cases, a lot of freedom is available to us. So instead of talking about those four factors we have limited control over, let's talk about something that we can do to make our students learn better. So in case I want to teach a set of students, these are the things that I need to know about them so that my methodology, my approach to the class can change a little. What should I know about? I should know my students' preferences. How do they want to learn? So how do you know them? Maybe there are tests that you can administer, or maybe you can take a very, very casual survey of what kind of preferences they have. Maybe you can watch them for some time, and if somebody is passing, failing, doing well, doing not so well in a certain area, you can just probe into that, and then you can find out why students have not learned something that is taught a certain way. So by putting in this kind of an little extra effort, we can study their learning differences. Similarly, there are cognitive factors which teachers must know. There are emotional factors that teachers should know, and there are environmental factors. So if a teacher knows these things, because they are going to affect the student's learning level and learning potential and learning possibilities, so he can or she can alter the teaching methodology appropriately. Coming quickly to the the learning styles of students, it all started in 1970s when Walter Bob, one psychologist, worked on how people look at things, how people um, understand and comprehend things. He said that there are three kinds of learning processes. Yes? Had somebody said something? Oh, I'm sorry. All right. So his VAC model says VAK stands for visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. That's why it's called VAC. So Walter Berg said that there are three kinds of learners. So some students are visual learners. They see with their eyes and learn. Some are auditory learners. They listen things with their ear and learn. And some are kinesthetic learners. Kinesthetic means they do things with their hands. They feel. They get up from their place and then they move about and then they do something with their body and then only they learn. So he divided learners into three categories. So some are visual learners, some are auditory learners, and some kinesthetic learners. And I think you established it when you saw that first slide when I played an audio and also showed you some words and pictures. So each one of you, tried to remember those words slightly differently. The same way, I think it's almost the same thing that Walter Berg proposed when he said that there are three kinds of learners. Moving on from here, Neil Fleming, immediately after that, he came out with a new theory. He said, no, it's not VAK model, it's VARK model. He added a new learner style. He added a fourth one and he said there are four kinds of learners, four learning styles. What are they? One is visual, of course, one is auditory, one is kinesthetic, the fourth one is reading writing. That means he made a distinction between the visual learners and reading writing learners. Visual learners, prefer to see pictures, something that they see with their eyes and then they learn. And reading writing learners, they go by words. They are verbal learners. So they read words, they write words, they see words, and through words they learn. So words are more important to them than pictures. When they read something and when they see a picture, both of them are seeing, they are using their eyes, but one is seeing the picture, one is seeing the word. This was the distinction that Neil Fleming made, and then he said there are four kinds of learning styles. And we will just see this video. This is about 2.5 minutes. This explains what I just told you, the same thing, but in a slightly more effective way. Watch this video. Each one has a learning style. Each one prefers a certain way of learning. One sees and learns. One hears and learns. One uses words to learn. And one does something to learn. So these are the four different styles. I also hope you have understood that these were psychological theories. So theories based on psychology, and then they did vast, exhaustive studies of people, students at all levels, and they said that students have these four different preferences. McCarthy proposed something else completely different from what has been discussed so far. This is not that VAK or VARK mode, but he said that learners may be innovative, analytical, common sense learners, dynamic learners, depending on what they do and how they do it. For instance, there are people who are always trusting in facts. There are students who come to a class to learn with support from lots of facts. If you present facts to them, data to them, statistics to them, they love learning, and they are called analytical learners. They are patient, they are reflective, and you can read them for yourself, and you need not worry too much about them also. But at the same time, I just would like to tell you that there is a theory that is not exactly learning styles, but this is learning types. So people learn for various reasons, people learn various ways, and they apply various learning tools and methods. So this was another thing that happened simultaneously. And Kolb said that there are 4 stages, not learning styles, not learning types, but there are 4 stages. So people first feel things and learn, then they watch things and learn, then they become reflective, right? They reflect and then they think, assimilate and understand and learn. And some people at another stage they do things and learn. So these are again an inventory, a list of learning styles according to Cole, and he called them different names. Those who feel and learn, he called them learning by concrete experience. And those who watch and learn, he called that reflective observation, or O is the abbreviation for that. Those who think are actually abstractly conceptualizing, and they are called the AC learners. And those who are doing and learning, they are actually active experimenting with things. So physical, they learn by doing. So they will learn when they do something, it's easier for them to learn. That's the idea. And they are called AE learners. So yet another theory, again, completely unrelated to the previous learning style theories, was proposed by Felder Silverman. He said it's not that 4 categories of learning styles that we see, but it's various others. People are either visual or verbal, or people are either inductive or deductive. Similarly, students are either sensing or intuitive. They are either active or reflective, and they are either sequential or global. So he drew many parallels. He said either this or that. So some students learn by seeing, some students learn by using words, some students learn by just sensing it. So you present some facts to them, they're very highly practical kind of students. Some students are intuitive, so they can grasp things, they can be very creative, they can be innovative, they grasp, so they just see and comprehend things. Similarly, some are active. The active students are like the kinesthetic students, and they are reflective. Reflective students again are like intuitive students, so they just think through, and they can work even on their own without support from outside, because they're reflective. Subjects like philosophy, psychology, and maybe a few other areas are easier to understand if students are capable of thinking on their own and working on their own. Similarly, some are inductive, some are deductive, some are sequential. Some students understand things only if you present facts quite sequentially, orderly, in a chronological or whatever other order, linear order, chronological order, spatial order, logical order. So if you put them in some order, they understand better. But some students are not like that. They have a holistic approach. So if you present the whole thing, so in whatever order you put, they can grasp things. So this was another theory that was presented by Felder Silverman. So now coming to the most popular and the one that we are going to discuss today in greater detail. I'm sorry, I went through the other historical developments in a little hurry, because that's only a peep into the past. But the one theory that is very popular today, and the one theory that is still accepted and adopted by various materials producers, academicians, and educational experts, is this Howard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences. So he called them multiple intelligences, not learning styles. He called them intelligences, multiple intelligences. Students are intelligent in different ways. So everybody is intelligent in a different way. The fish is intelligent, and the elephant is intelligent, and the giraffe is intelligent, and every animal is. But every animal is different. Every animal is capable in a different way. So, again, taking an example from that video that we saw, so we cannot teach the fish to climb up a tree. There is some other animal that climbs up trees, but the fish can do something else extremely well, which others cannot do. So every student is capable, every student is talented, every student is intelligent in a different way. Starting again with Einstein's definition of statement that every student is a genius. Everyone is a genius. There is nobody who is not a genius, but genius in a different way. So what is Howard Gardner's theory? He said there are 7 different kinds of intelligences. Of course, there are 8 there. The 8th one was added later, but he said that there are 7 kinds of intelligences. What are these 7 kinds of intelligences? The first one, he called it verbal intelligence. Another name for that later given was linguistic. Linguistic and verbal, today they mean the same thing. So students are verbally intelligent or linguistically intelligent. What does that mean? That means these students who are verbally intelligent are extremely good with words, language, sentence, structure, grammar, etc. So the first kind of students are brilliant in terms of their language abilities, linguistic abilities. Then there are a second set of students who are intelligent in terms of their logical abilities, their mathematical abilities, their reasoning abilities. So what do? They're extremely good with logic and numbers. This is yet another category of students that we have in our classes. Right. The third category of students have a different kind of intelligence again. They are visually intelligent. Visually also is another word for that, spatially intelligent. And what they are good with images, huge spaces, etc. Right? And the fourth type of intelligence is a tactile or kinesthetic. And tactile and kinesthetic students are best with their movement, body movement. Their intelligence is related to their body movement. So they need to do things with their hands. They need to feel things. They need to move about. They need to use their body. They need to stand up in the class, sit down in the class, go here, go there. I mean, when they do things, they learn best, the doing kind. The fifth kind of intelligence is either musical, also called auditory. They are good with sound, they are good with rhythm, they are good with music. So when they hear something, when they speak, right, when some music is played to them, when the lesson is converted into a song, they learn best. So these are musically intelligent students. The sixth category of them are interpersonally intelligent, also called socially intelligent. So these students are best learners. They become best learners when they work in groups, when they work together with others. They interact with people, they socialize a lot, they get along with people easily. So this is the next kind of intelligence. And the seventh kind that he proposed was the intrapersonal intelligence or the solitary intelligence. So these students learn best when they are alone, they are reflective, they are self-aware, and they have their own goals, dreams, and they can pursue them on their own without much intervention from outside. So they're highly reflective kind. So the interpersonal and solitary kind of intelligence is the seventh one. The eighth one, as I just told you, is one that was added later, and the ninth one also is there, but maybe we'll see that a little later. So the naturalist learners are environment friendly. They prefer to go out of the class, they prefer to be with the nature, they prefer to watch things around, they prefer to commune with nature, and that's how they learn best. So these are the 8 different intelligences that Howard Gardner he proposed. And this theory, actually, I told you just now that this was proposed by a psychologist for the field of psycho. This was a psychological study. But this study became so very popular soon that it became accepted and adopted by the academicians and the educational experts. And then this got reflected in the kind of changes that happened over years in the educational field also. So people who wrote textbooks, for instance, started keeping this in mind and producing textbooks appropriately. People who were interested in in the classroom methodologies, so they started adopting a methodology that caters to multiple needs of these multiple kinds of students. And similarly, teachers themselves started looking at differently and utilizing this knowledge of multiple intelligences to engineer their classes in such a way that it benefits more people than just a lecture. So instead of the lecture method, they started using more advanced methods of teaching, more interesting pedagogical practices, using a variety of texts and materials so that the classroom is more productive. There is a video about the ninth, including the ninth one, the 9 types of intelligence.
Excuse me, sir. I have a doubt. Hello.
Sorry?
So I have a doubt.
Yeah, please.
Are these intelligences mutually exclusive?
Actually, I wanted to make that point towards the end. They are not exclusive. Everyone has a combination of many of these intelligences. So, for instance, you may be 10% verbally intelligent another 20% logically intelligent, 50% interpersonally intelligent, and another 10%.
Okay.
So you are a combination. So
Right.
every
Just a moment.
single individual is a combination of these. Everyone has every intelligence, but in a different proportion.
So what is the research that support this classification and this quantification of intelligence?
The research that's available is from Howard Gardner onwards. Many other people worked on that, and many other people proved and disproved facts relating to this. And I'll come in the last slide. I'll tell you what are the dangers and the risks involved in following this.
Okay, thank you.
Right. So this was the theory, and maybe you can watch this video again. This is about 2.5 minutes, and then you can just see how these 9 types of intelligences can be exploited, can be fully utilized when you create a learning resource. And of course, this video does not relate to academics, but this is a very practical example. Suppose you are in a certain project, you are in a certain you are constructing a building, you are creating a new project. How these 9 different kinds of intelligences, 9 different kinds of people work, or what responsibilities can be given to them, how we can exploit these kinds of intelligences is what it's about. It's just interesting. You can watch this and maybe you can give your comments after you see the video. Listen to it carefully.
In 1983, American psychic.
Okay, I think you enjoyed watching that. Which was the 9th one, apart from the 8th that you saw in the previous slide? This video talks about a 9th one. Do you remember which one was that?
So musical,
Musical was there in the previous slide also.
existential, sir.
I'll show that slide to you. This one was the one that had 8, but in the video that was the 9th one.
Yes, sir. Existential, sir.
Existential. And what was the name that he gave that boy who had that existential intelligence?
Life smart.
Life smart. So, I mean, that video talks about 9 different kinds of intelligences, and towards the end, very interestingly and a little humorously, the video says that teachers must be what?
Teach smart.
Yeah, they should be teach smart. They should be pedagogically smart. So if we are pedagogically smart and if we teach smart, we can take care of all the 9 different kinds of intelligences that students come to us with. And we can manipulate our classroom to meet the needs of as many different kinds of student intelligences as possible. That's the idea. Coming back to that, so let's very quickly, I think we have half an hour, and let's very quickly take a look at each one of these intelligences in a little more detail. The first kind of students are verbally intelligent, and they're word smart. Word smart is the name given in the video there, and they're also called linguistically intelligent. So various names, don't get confused by the names. So the idea is that there are one intelligence that that is most intelligent, are very highly intelligent in terms of using words. So what do? They do all this. They are very good with words. They prefer to read aloud. They love reading. They love writing. They are good with stories. If somebody tells them a joke or recites a poem, they enjoy, and they solve quizzes, puzzles, etc. And they discuss wherever words are essential, wherever words are employed. So their interest is there. So any activity that happens in the classroom where words are used, just show them something perhaps they're not equally interested. But if words are used, right, it's not the demonstration, but it can be a lecture, it can be a storytelling, it can be a discussion, it can be a debate, it can be a recitation. So these are the things that these students love. And even they write and read and they use words. Going one step further from here, I just would like to tell you that if you think that any of your student has predominant verbal intelligence, so he's predominantly verbally intelligent, if you identify students like that, you can tell them that after they graduate or after they do their post-graduation, they have a successful career possibility as a poet, as a journalist, as a writer, a teacher, a lawyer, a politician, a translator. It need not be just a routine moving on to the next next level of studying the same subjects that they taught. Maybe they are doing a BCom now, or a BSc now, or BA now, whatever, or a post-graduation now, but they have a potential career opportunity here. So if you know this, you will be able to guide your students either in the class or outside the class. By any chance, if you are a career counselor of your students, or if you are so friendly with students that students approach you and ask you for some career suggestions, perhaps this will help you. So in case you find such students, please tell them that here is an opportunity for them. I'm sorry if I'm going very fast, because I think we have just 30 minutes left, but still, please feel free to stop me in case you have a question. The second kind of intelligence that we're talking about today is logical intelligence, also called number smart students. And these students love best when they see something in numbers. So even this slide, deliberately I put numbers there for the bullet points. So that, I mean, this works best to them. The moment you put it in the form of numbers, the moment you present information in the form of a problem-solving idea, and then you ask them to interpret some abstract ideas in concrete numbers. If you give them facts, statistics, data, tables, graphs, charts, and they expect everything to have some evidence. If you just tell them something, for instance, if you say India is a poor country, it does not interest them. If you say 84% of Indians are, they immediately love that. So the moment you convert that into some factual information, so they love listening to you. So if you challenge them, if you give them a task, and if you give them a task that's not easy to solve, I think they love learning and they enjoy participating in the class. So these are the second kind of students with a second kind of intelligence, and that's called logical intelligence. And the career opportunities for them: researchers, accountants, mathematicians, computer specialists, computer programmers, and scientists, etc. So these are the career opportunities for them. Any questions? Yeah, let's move on to the third one. The third kind of intelligence is visual intelligence. Visual, as I told you already, even the VAK model, even the VARK model, it has been there from the beginning. Visual learners are those who see and learn. They see with their eyes, and that's why they're picture smart. If you show a picture to them, I think they grasp it easy, grasp it fast. So every class must have a little to show something to the students. So carry a lot of visual aids to your class, use visual images, use charts and videos, a PowerPoint slideshow, for instance. I mean, even when I was a student, long ago, this was about maybe 65, 70 years ago. I'm 70 now, maybe. So I went to school for the first time 66 years ago, 67 years ago rather. So even during that time, some teachers used to bring a chart, and then they used to draw a picture on the board, or they used to ask us to draw a picture in the notebook. We did not have many textbooks those days. Even that one single textbook that we had when I was a young primary school student was in single color, very unattractive. I mean, the kind of change today, for instance, if you look at a primary school textbook, I think you will grasp the evolution very easily, because even the primary school textbook keeps all this in mind. So there is something to see, there is something to write there. There is a workbook attached that the children are asked to write there. There is something for them to listen to. Some textbooks are built such, if they touch something, the word, the music plays, and the word plays, or even as you turn the pages, there is music built into that, or the sound of the word that they are saying is built into that, like that. So the textbooks also have undergone huge transformation in course of time. And though today textbooks are so very colorful, impressive, there are questions, there are quizzes built in, there are exercises built in. So the logical learner, the visual learner, the auditory, every learner is taken care of. So the textbook is built in such a way that whatever be your learning style, whatever be your learning intelligence, I think your needs are catered to. But in the olden days, it was not like that. With just one single black and white textbook, very unimpressive from the modern point of view. So all that it had was words and nothing else. I don't even remember any pictures those days. It was all just text in black and white and very poorly printed quality, very poor quality paper. I don't think it inspired anybody. If we look at it from and compare with what we have today, I think there is hardly any similarity. Okay, so if you use the blackboard, color board, crayons, markers, whatever in your class, I think these students love a lot. I became a lecturer in 1976. 1976 was long ago, I think. How long ago? 46 years ago. I think. So those days we did not have, I mean, any color crayons in the college. So the college used to supply us only white chalk piece, and there was a wooden blackboard. And I mean, again, it was not impressive. I was working some 200 kilometers away from Hyderabad, where I live now. And when I came to Hyderabad, I bought a box of color crayons. And I took them to, I mean, with my own money those days. And I took them to the class, and then when I was teaching grammar or some other subject or whatever. So I used some color chalk piece on the board. Students showed so much. The moment I used some color chalk piece on the board, I think their interest levels multiplied. They loved that the moment I used 2-3 different colors on the chalkboard. I think I remember that expression in their eyes the first time when they saw that. So there were some visual learners, and there are bound to be visual learners everywhere, but the visual learners loved it very much. So if you use maps, if you use slideshows, pictures, diagrams, picture words, and visualized stories are visualizable stories. If you tell a story, I mean, if the students can, if you tell your story in such a way that the students can visualize that. A storytelling is not just, I mean, reading out a story. So it is a powerful narration, powerful presentation of a story. Even if you're telling it, it can be visualized if you know how to tell a story. So anyway, if you do that, I think your visual learners are taken care of. Their intelligence is taken care of. So in case you find such visual learners in your class, you advise them to become navigators, sculptors, architects, artists, visual artists, interior designers, etc. Where I think pictures and then images and then vision, visibility, visuality, and such things are taken care of. Then there are tactile learners. So what do these tactile learners do? They're body smart. They do things and only then they learn. Unless they do things, unless they touch something, they cannot easily learn anything. So such learners prefer to write, draw, do something hands-on, and participate in a sport, a game, a role play. So if you are a language teacher, for instance, if you invite some students to come and play a certain role in either a pre-scripted or impromptu role play, I think they love that. I mean, similarly, if you put them into a group discussion and if they organize themselves, if they move physically here and there, or even if you ask them to teach each other, they love that because they're actually participating in it. They're learning by doing. And I think every class should have some physical activity, however, whatever subject you teach. Don't think, sir, my subject does not lend itself to any physical activity. I can only deliver a lecture. No, that's not correct. So every subject can be presented in the form of an activity, a group discussion, a project, right? Something where students have to do instead of just listening or sitting and watching and things happening. So tactile learners are there in your class. And what are the best career options for them? So they become great actors, artisans, sculptors, again, artists, athletes, craftspersons, etc., etc. Where the the next one is the musical intelligence, and such students, such people are called music smart people. And the teaching strategies include. I'll stop this. So what do we do with them? So we suggest some audio books till. I think that's the easiest and the best way to do with these students, because I think these days, luckily for us, almost every book is available on Google, on Kindle in audio format. Even if the audio format is not available, there are softwares that can read a textbook for you. Whatever text you feed into it, and then it reads it out for you. And even when it's read out, you can choose the voice level, volume level, male voice, female voice, Indian voice, American work. So like that, there are options. For instance, I think your GPS is one of the best examples that you have. It not only shows you the map, it also reads it out for you. It also announces for you. So all the notifications are announced. So you listen to that while you're driving. You don't have to turn your head and see the screen, and you can just listen to that and go. So there are people who love listening to audiobooks. So suggest them to them. And similarly, music. There are students who love listening to music, and I have my daughter, for instance. She always plays some music in the background in a very, very low volume. 1 second, please. Just a moment. I think I have a problem with this. All right, there. I'm sorry. Just one moment. I'm really sorry.
Fine, sir.
Right. Okay. So by using music in the class, I remember lots of instances when I carried a song to the class, and then I converted the song into some kind of listening exercise or a practical grammar exercise or whatever. And then, I mean, students loved it. And there is a lot of material available. Very recently, I've seen a WhatsApp video where a physics teacher converted a physics lesson into a song. That was very interesting, a little humorous also. And so, if you have a recording of your own training, for instance, if I send it in the form of YouTube or audio recording of my lesson, maybe some students go back home and listen to that and then love listening to that later. So rhyme, music, song, etc., etc. These are the things that they love. And the best career opportunities for these students are being musicians, disc jockeys, and then singers and composers, music lyricists, music composers, music critics. I think there is a huge opportunity. Radio jockeys, television announcers, television hosts, TV hosts. I mean, there are innumerable opportunities. When we started young, I think there was no TV, not much radio. Even that when TV came, it was one single channel for several years. But today, I think almost every town has a TV channel. Every town, every small village has its own cable TV. And there are plenty of opportunities there. So you can suggest to your students in case you find students with this kind of intelligence. Then there are socially intelligent learners who are called people smart. They interact with others and they love best when they work together with other students. So promote a lot of collaborative learning, pair work in the class, group work in the class, triads in the class, role plays in the class, group discussion in the class, open questions in the class. So by doing this, automatically participation levels of the students increases, and whenever there is a discussion of some concept, automatically involvement of this level, this kind of students will be greater. So you can ask them to share stories, compare things, brainstorm, an excellent tool. So brainstorm idea when all students participate. So when each student contributes something to the class instead of just sitting and listening to you. So, I mean, role plays and sharing stories and discussions, etc., are the appropriate teaching tools that you can add to your classroom interaction, teaching, learning process to make classes more useful to the socially intelligent students. And in case you find such students, you can suggest to them to become researchers, theorists, philosophers, politicians, salespersons, teachers, social workers, because these are the people who need to get along with people, work along with people, work in company of others to succeed in life. And these kind of students are best suited for that. Then there are solitary learners, self-smart, reflective kind of learners. They prefer to sit alone, learn on their own, do a lot of reflection. Thinking is their strength. Reflection is their strength. So what do? You give them some concepts and ask them to think to themselves. You make them feel, you make them think, you give them problems, and you ask them to solve those problems on their own individually. I mean, it's not pair work or it's not group work, but a task that's given to one student to think and come back to the class and narrate one's own experiences or the story the next day. So also allow them, encourage them to introspect. So think about them. These are good at SWOT analysis, for instance. They do an excellent outcome on that, and also help them track their success on their own. They can be their own masters. They can be their own teachers. In case you find such students, you advise them to become counselors, poets, and philosophers, critics, critics in any field, writers, statesmen, spiritualists. These are some excellent career opportunities for them. And the last one is the naturalist kind. The naturalist kind of students, also called nature smart students, they always love to interact with nature. They go out into the open and then they see flowers, they see birds, they interact with nature, and they commune with nature, and they learn from nature very easily. So instead of teaching them within the classroom, once in a while, again, whatever subject you teach, if you make it a regular practice to take out students into the open, I think they see things and learn, they watch things and learn, they interact with things and learn. They find patterns. They are very good with classification. All subjects need classification. Classification is one important way of learning things best. So they are very good with that, and they can relate life to people around, nature around, environment around, etc. And field visits and come camping are excellent to teach such students. And in case of such students, when you find such students, so you can ask them to become photographers and natural scientists and adventurers, explorers. Don't think a student is in biology or physical science, or maybe he's a BA student, he's a BCom student. How can he become a natural scientist or an explorer? So this has nothing to do with that. Whatever subject you study at the university will come in handy, will be extremely useful when you go out into nature. For instance, let me say a commerce student might be working in a forest because his interest is nature, but at the same time he can use his commerce knowledge of commerce that he studied, knowledge of economics that he has studied, and it can be applied to whatever one is doing. So I mean, these are all interdisciplinary things, and in these days, so how universities and the education system has become much more open, cross faculty combinations are possible now. That's why I think irrespective of the background that they come from, you can suggest to the students ideal professional options that they have. So I'll stop here for a moment. I'll stop here for a moment and get back to you. And maybe you can give your comments at this point, because we have another 15 minutes left before I go back to the slideshow. Any comments on this? Any questions?
So I was thinking, this classification of students on the basis of different kinds of intelligences they might have, is this something that has to be done when they are still very young, when they are just starting out in school, maybe? So the early part of
I to quickly answer your question, don't classify them at all. Don't tell them you are a visual learner. Don't tell them you are a logical learner. Don't tell them anything. Just keep this knowledge at the back of your mind. There is a student in my class, or there are a few students in my class who are good when I present things in the verbal format. If I have this knowledge, I can make some small alterations to my approach. So don't immediately jump to the conclusion, oh, this fellow is only logical, this fellow is only visual. Somebody else also asked me this question, are they exclusive? They are not. That's what I was trying to tell you. So they are not. One is not 100% interpersonal learner. One is not 100% solitary learner. It's like that. Okay. Yeah. Next, please. Anyone else?
Yes, sir. I have a little doubt, sir. Sir, in a class of 45 minutes duration, how can we use these strategies, all these strategies?
I think your question, I understood your question. It's very, very easy. So every 45-minute class, I have to ask myself, is there something in my 45-minute class interesting for my logical learner? For instance, in that 45 minutes, is there at least one short half-minute quiz? And in that 45 minutes, is there something that my students can see? Is there at least one chart, one video, or one PowerPoint slideshow, or some such thing that I can show them? Or at least can I draw on the board instead of just teaching? So is there something in my 45 minutes lecture for the interpersonal learner? For instance, out of that 45 minutes, can I dedicate 2 minutes for them when they go and talk to somebody else, or when they come and make a role play, or they participate in a group project? So if you just think, is my 45-minute lecture catering to as many different kinds of students as possible? I think that's done. Do you agree, Biman?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else? One more question, please, before I go back to the slideshow. One last question. Okay, if there are no questions, I'll go back to the slideshow once again. One second.
I have one question.
Yeah, yes, please.
So, I mean, it's a hypothetical question. Is there any person or anyone who can be out of these 9 categories?
I don't think so. One can be any possible combination of 9, but not out of these 9. No 10th one has been found yet. So, of course, I am not an expert, but what psychologists and academicians have told us is that everyone is a combination of some or all of these 9 intelligences. So, typically people believe that everyone is intelligent in every way, but in a different proportion. So I don't think anyone has found a 10th way. Maybe they've given a different name, but it's not a 10th way.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you, Amshi. So let me go back. So we are running out of time. Right. Can you see the screen, please? No. Yeah. So this was the 9th one, the naturalist, right? So I have a small quiz for you. You see some pictures on the screen. I think all of you can see some 8 pictures, and also 8 different intelligences on the right side. Maybe you can switch on your microphones and anybody can identify any picture and also tell me which kind of intelligence that person represents. One after another.
A.R. Rahman, musical.
Musical. Where is that picture? Bottom right.
Bottom right.
Bottom right. A.R. Rahman is musical. Thank you very much. That's good. That's good.
Shashi Tharoor, verbal.
Sorry?
Shashi Tharoor, verbal.
Shashi Tharoor. This is Shashi Tharoor. And what's his intelligence?
Verbal ability.
Verbal. So he's very good with words. His felicity with words is extremely impressive. The number of words that he knows, and not only knowing the words, but the way he employs them very appropriately, the right synonym, and the kind of comfort that he has using words is, I think, very, very highly remarkable. Yes, he is verbally intelligent. It does not mean that he is not intelligent in other ways. He is predominantly intelligent in verbal mode, but perhaps he is intelligent in other things also. Right. Anyone else?
Salim Ali, sir. Salim Ali.
Salim Ali, where is
he? Naturalist.
Where is he, Salim Ali?
Below the Shashi Tharoor.
Correct. This picture is Salim Ali's, and he is naturalist. So he was an ornithologist. He was a bird watcher. I think he is an Indian, and then I think he did a lot of research about birds and nature. Yeah, he is a naturalist. Maybe let me go one by one. This one, the first.
Intrapersonal.
Oprah
Intrapersonal. Very good. Thank you so much. Within. So he reflected, he went into a forest, did meditation, looked within, and came out with some truth, and then that's why he's intrapersonal. And who is this man?
Vishwanathan Anand.
Vishwanathan Anand.
Logical.
And this one?
Logical. Oprah
Winfrey is?
Interpersonal.
Yes.
Interpersonal and verbal.
Correct. Verbal and interpersonal. Thank you very much. And this one?
Charlie
Chaplin.
Verbal.
Bodily. Yes, very good. And this one? MF Hussain. Spatial. Because, I mean, he worked in space. He worked in painting. Painting was his passion, and he worked in large canvas. And that's so. I mean, the examples that I've chosen are, I mean, very highly conspicuous. The moment you see them and if you know them, it's very easy to recognize. But our students are not like that. You don't have a Gautama Buddha in your class. You don't have a Charlie Chaplin in your class. You don't have a Shashi Tharoor in your class. So your students are, in all likelihood, combinations of these. So they have verbal intelligence, they have bodily intelligence, they have logical intelligence, but in different proportions. That's the whole lesson that you need to learn. So finally, before we conclude in the next 4 or 5 minutes, so effective teaching is not what you teach, but it is how you teach. So you are teaching the same subject. Suppose you are a physics teacher and there are 10 lecturers in your department. All 10 of you are teaching the same textbook to the same students in the same classroom, in the same laboratory. But one of you is more successful in the sense you are able to teach your students better. Your students are able to follow you better because you are using the right teaching methodology. So how you teach makes a lot more sense than what you teach. What you teach anyway, these days, of course, teaching is almost becoming irrelevant because knowledge is available everywhere. Knowledge is available, in fact, easier to the students than to the teachers. The students are much more tech savvy. They have access to all that we also can access. The same books are available to the same Google is available to them. So teaching itself is not a very important thing, but teaching wisely, teaching the right methodology, and teaching, knowing what you are teaching and how you are teaching is much more important. So if you keep this one thought in your mind, I'm sure you will make a lot of huge difference to your classroom and its outcomes. So every teacher, I mean, this is the answer to the question that you just asked. So in case I have to 45-minute class, how do I do all this, you asked. So every class, 45 minutes, 50 minutes, 60 minutes, whatever, ask yourself, does my class have a little lecture? Does my class have a little board work? Am I giving a little homework to my students every day? Am I giving them a task to do either in the class or outside the class for the logical students? Does my class have a project either for the solitary learners or for the interpersonal learners, a project that one does on one's own, or a project that students work in small groups and work together? So the projects again are relevant to logical learners, interpersonal learners, intrapersonal learners, depending on what is the task. And is there some discussion in my class? Can I ask a question and throw it open to everybody? Any student can answer it. Or maybe I give them a topic and ask them to discuss the idea. Maybe I can dedicate one class to that, or I can dedicate a little time in my class for a discussion. And how involved are my students? Am I just teaching them, or am I stopping every little while and then I'm involving my students? So if you have all these things, or at least some of these things built into your class, I think your class has become a multimodal class, and a multimodal class caters to the needs of the students much better. Suppose you have a 45-minute lecture, 45-minute class, and all 45 minutes class is a lecture. What has happened? So the auditory learners have learned best, but the others are left behind. There is nothing for the other learners. Suppose your class is only board work. I know I had one teacher, all the time he just used to come to the class and write everything on the board, turning away from the students, and his board work was excellent. But at the same time, I mean, students, there were at least a lot of students who did not get much from that because it was a little boring. It was also interesting only to some section of the students, not to everybody, because students were not involved. Students did not have anything to do. Students did not have anything to speak. Students did not have much to listen to. So that's all. So I think this slide answers the question that you asked me. Viman, I think, asked me that 45-minute class, how can I do everything? So if you do these are the kinds of learners that are taken care of. So this is the final slide. So critically, I mean, there is a lot of research that has been going on this, and then people have very highly diversified views on these theories, and science is not strong enough. Still, perhaps a lot of research needs to be done to establish that students really have these kinds of intelligences. And then there are, of course, measuring tools also. There are, in the previous slide, I skipped it. This slide, I skipped it. So there are tools that can help you evaluate yourself, or there are tools that you can use to evaluate your students. But I skipped that slide because evaluation itself may not help me much. For instance, as a teacher, if I know what kind of a learner I am as an adult, it helps me. But if I know that there are 10 students this kind, 5 students that kind, 5 students this kind, it may not help me much, because anyway I have to cater to every kind, and there is bound to be every kind of student in my class, right? So change your learning styles, take the strengths of the students into more consideration, and use all kinds. Finally, so you let your education, let your teaching, let your students' learning be as inclusive as possible, and keep in mind the preferences of the students, and then appreciate means give respect to them, and also consider that there are various preferences. Each student has a different preference. It can even be a very small change relating to where the student sit down, what kind of a student is, where he sits down, how close he to the board, how away, how far is he from the board, what kind of tool is used in the class. So do you have some audio file in your class? Can you sing, or can you add some rhyme to your teaching, or can you ask your students to do that? Can you ask all your students to repeat after you? So what do you do? So depends again on your knowledge of the various kinds of learning intelligences. And as far as possible, we offer a variety of resources, right? So this is what you can do. And then I'll leave here, recall the incident, and also how the student's life takes a transformation after this diagnosis. So there is a student like this in your class also, and there are different kinds of other students also. So, I mean, see, teachers become heroes by transforming the lives of some students, perhaps not the whole school or the whole world. And if you can spend a little more time and look deeper into your students' minds and understand their learning styles and learning intelligences, perhaps you can bring about a transformation in his mind. A student who thought he was a student, because here was a fish, Ishan was a fish who was being taught to climb up trees. And people thought he was a genius. He was a genius painter, but we tried to make him a regular individual student. So this is the kind of approach that we need to take, and then we need to look deeper into the minds of our students and make small alterations to our classroom approach so that our methodology is inclusive and more students are taken care of. Finally, that last sentence, that to repeat what I just said, let your 45 minutes have as much as possible for every kind of learning. Thank you very much. If you still have questions,